The VW Transporter might not be the biggest selling van in the UK, it's got quite a long way to go to overtake the mighty Ford Transit on that front, but it is arguably one of the most popular. It is consistently one of the most searched for vans on Autotrader. This probably has a lot to do with its heritage, which stretches all the way back to 1950 when the Type 2, also confusingly later known as the T1, was first launched. Its popularity with the kind of owners who, in today's terms, like to live their best life, shall we say, meant that early versions were seen more as leisure vehicles than commercial vehicles. Amazingly, due to some pretty long life cycles, the latest version of the Transporter is only the 6th generation, also known as the T6. I've been living with one for the past 6 months and have done around 6,000 miles in that time. There are a few things about this Transporter that make it a little bit different. The observant ones amongst you might have noticed something about this loading bay. Now that is, it's got seats in it. That's because this is the Kombi version. That means that a small business can get all of their tools, etc. in the back and then still get a team of colleagues in the seats, whereas at the weekend, the family can go in the seats and all of the kit that they come with can go in the back. There's not a huge amount to say about this loading bay. It is big and even, and VW will let you add all manner of different linings in there. Wheel arches are a necessary intrusion into any van, but they're nice and clean and simple, and they don't get in the way too much in this case. Now, the one thing I would say is that given I live in a city, my personal preference would be for side opening doors. You can get those as an option. This one is pretty big and does need quite a lot of space to open it fully. Thankfully, the parking sensors start beeping early enough that you can stop and leave plenty of space to swing the door all the way up. Now, if I was carrying tools rather than toys, there is one more option I would tick for the back of this van, and that is to put a bulkhead between the front and the rear parts of the cabin. It would stop things rolling forward into the front and add a little bit more in the way of security. Now, one of the advantages of not having a bulkhead is that you can take these rear seats out and turn this into one massive loading bay. But look at them, they're absolutely massive. So to be honest, they've just stayed in place for the entire time that I've lived with this van. Having ISOFIX fittings across all 3 of these back seats is fantastic, but when it comes to getting a baby in and out, they have to go in this seat here closest to the side door. And because we didn't tick the box for a second sliding door on the other side, adult passengers have to go in through the front door and in between the 2 front seats. Right, that is enough of the few options that I wish I had, because this is the Highline trim, which means that you get an excellent amount of kit for a van. Those parking sensors that I mentioned earlier, dual heated front seats, a heated windscreen, which means you can clear the ice in moments in the winter, this little bin in the door pocket, and my personal favourite are these dual front armrests, which means you can get really comfy on a long journey. This clear and excellent infotainment system is brilliant as well. Normally in a van you get a dialed back version of the sort of systems that you get in a car, but that isn't the case here. You get full Android Auto and Apple CarPlay systems as well. The general feeling in here is of real quality. The materials aren't quite as soft as those that you get in a VW passenger car, but they do feel a real step up from the traditional van offering. Back at the start of this video, I mentioned there were a few things different about this Transporter, but I missed out on arguably the biggest one of all. Now, if I shut up for a second, I'll see if you can hear it. You might not be able to hear over the rain, but there's not much in the way of noise in here, and that is because this has got a petrol rather than a diesel engine, as many vans normally do. This is great in some ways. It's smooth, quiet, and makes for a fairly relaxed drive. The gearing is well spaced enough that there are never any noticeable issues when it comes to overtaking or pulling away from a standstill. It does struggle a little bit going up steeper hills or when it's fully laden, but to be honest, a smaller diesel engine would have the same problem. But the massive, grey, big-eared, trunk-waving animal in the room with a petrol engine in a vehicle like this is, of course, fuel economy. And the bad thing is that things don't look that great, certainly on paper anyway. This thing only does 30.4 mpg. The slightly better news is that I'm getting quite close to that. Even when fully laden, I'm getting around 28.6 mpg, and some tanks have shown around 32 miles per gallon. The other thing is that with an 80-litre tank, it has made for some pretty hefty fuel bills when I've come to refill it. The backlash against diesel doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon, but I'm not quite convinced that a petrol engine in a vehicle like this is the solution for the nation's van drivers just yet. It's a nice option to have, and it certainly doesn't lose out in the practicality stakes, and the Transporter is an excellent vehicle in many other ways. But the efficiency and cleanliness of modern diesels means they will still have the edge for now.